The clinking of plates was the only sound between us. The old diner smelled like burnt coffee and cheap memories. I stirred my cup, pretending to care about the sugar. She stared at the window like I wasn't even there. "Lena," I finally said, forcing a smile. "You haven't touched your food," she sighed. "I'm not hungry." "You used to love this place," I said quietly. "You said it felt real." "That was before," she murmured. "Before what?" I asked, though I already knew. She looked at me then, eyes that once held warmth now cold and sharp. "Before I realized real doesn't pay the bills, Ethan." Her words hit harder than I expected. "Is that what this is about? Money?" "It's not just money," she said, pushing her plate away. "It's about a future. You've been saying for years you'll start your own company, but you're still a junior coder making scraps." I tried to laugh it off. "So you're giving up because I'm not rich yet?" "I'm giving up because I'm tired," she said. "Tired of waiting. Tired of pretending we're fine." I leaned forward. "Do you even remember why we started all this?" "We had nothing, but we had each other. You said that was enough." She shook her head slowly. "That was before I saw what enough actually looks like." The silence stretched until it hurt. My voice cracked when I spoke again. "You met someone else." She didn't deny it. "Daniel's different," I laughed, bitter and small. "Daniel Reed? The guy from our business class? The one who bragged about his car more than his grades? At least he knows what he wants," she snapped. "At least he's not afraid to take chances." "I've taken chances," I said, trying to stay calm. "Every damn day. You just never noticed because they didn't come with shiny results." "Ethan, please," she said softly, like she pitied me. "Don't make this harder." "I'm not making it harder," I whispered. "You are." She looked down at her phone, pretending to read a message. "He's waiting outside." "Of course he is," I said. "In his nice car, right? You'll get in, and he'll tell you that you deserve better. And maybe you'll believe him, for a while." Her lips trembled, but she stayed silent. "I could have given you everything," I said. "Not now, maybe not soon, but someday." She looked at me then, eyes glassy. "Someday doesn't feed dreams, Ethan." I laughed again, though it sounded more like a sob. "So what does? A man with a wallet big enough to fix your patience?" "That's not fair," she whispered. "Fair?" I said. "You're walking out on me because I'm broke. Don't talk to me about fair." She looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. She just sat there, still as a photograph. "Do you love him?" I asked. She hesitated too long. I could, that was it. That hesitation said everything. I stood up, tossing a few crumpled bills on the table. "Then go. Don't look back." "Ethan," "No," I cut her off. "You don't get to say my name like that anymore." She stood too, clutching her purse. "I never wanted to hurt you. You just didn't want to stay long enough to see me fail," I said. Her eyes filled, but she turned away. I watched her walk toward the door. For a moment, she stopped, her reflection caught in the glass, half in, half out. "Goodbye, Ethan," she said softly. I didn't answer. I just watched her step outside and into the rain. Through the window, I saw him, Daniel Reed, leaning against his sleek black car, umbrella in hand, smiling like he'd already won. She ran to him. He opened the door for her like some perfect gentleman out of a magazine. They drove away. I sat back down. The waitress came by, refilled my coffee without asking. "Rough night?" she said. I nodded. "You could say that," she smiled kindly. "You'll be okay, sweetheart." I almost believed her, but as I stared at the empty seat across from me, I realized something inside me had snapped. Not broken. Snapped clean, like a wire pulled too tight. That was the night I lost her, and the night I promised myself I'd never beg again. "Ethan." "You're late again," Mr. Price said, without looking up from his computer. His voice was flat, almost bored. "I know, sir. You always have excuses," he cut me off. "You've been distracted for weeks. Is this about that girl again?" I clenched my fists. "It's not about her," he sighed. "You used to be one of my best. Now your work's a mess. Maybe you need a break." "A break or a firing?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. "Both," my throat tightened. "You're serious?" "Completely. You're too emotional to handle real business. Pack your things." I stood there, frozen. I wanted to argue, to scream, but what was the point? I just nodded and walked out. When I got home, the apartment felt smaller than usual. Clara was sitting on the couch, typing on her laptop. She looked up when she saw me. "You're home early. What happened?" I tossed my bag to the floor. Got fired! Her eyes widened. What? Why? Apparently being human disqualifies me from corporate life, she frowned. Ethan. Don't start, I said, collapsing onto the chair. I don't want to lecture. I wasn't going to lecture you, she said softly. I was going to ask if you're okay. I laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? No, she admitted. But I still have to ask. I stared at the ceiling. I lost her, I lost my job, and the rent's due in 5 days. What's next? Maybe the universe will just drop an anvil on my head to finish the job. Stop it, Clara said sharply. You're not done, Ethan. You've been through worse. Not like this, I whispered. She's out there smiling while I'm drowning. She sat beside me. Then swim. Don't let her be the reason you sink. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. The next few days blurred together. Rejection emails, sleepless nights, cold leftovers. I'd stare at my computer screen for hours and type nothing. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her. It never was. Then one night, Mason called. Bro, I heard about your job. You holding up? I'm surviving, I muttered. Doesn't sound like it. Listen, I've been working on a small coding project. Maybe you can help. I can barely focus, I said. Then this will help you focus, he replied. You need to get out of your head. I'm not sure I'm ready. Ethan, he said firmly, you either start building something or you'll just keep breaking inside. Your choice, I sighed. Send me the details. Attaboy, he said, his voice brightening. We'll meet tomorrow. I'll bring coffee and hope. You bring your laptop and misery. Despite myself, I smiled. Deal! After the call, I opened my browser without thinking. And there it was, Lena's face on my feed. She was at some luxury event, standing beside Daniel. He had his arm around her waist, his smile perfect, practiced. The caption read, "The power couple of the year." My hands shook. I zoomed in on the picture. She looked happy, too happy. The kind of happy she never had with me. Guess I wasn't enough, I whispered. But then, something inside me shifted. The pain didn't vanish, it hardened. I stared at that photo until the anger drowned the sadness. No one's coming to save me, I said to the empty room. Not her, not anyone. I stood up and looked around. My apartment was small, cracked walls, flickering light, half-broken chair, but it was mine. Maybe it wasn't much, but it was a start. I opened my laptop and messaged Mason. I'm in. Almost instantly, he replied. Knew you'd say that. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to purpose. Clara peeked from her room. You're up late. Everything okay? Not yet, I said. But it will be, she smiled sleepily. That's the brother I know. After she went back to bed, I stared at my reflection on the black screen. My eyes looked different, tired but alive. I'll climb out, I whispered to myself, even if it kills me. That night, I didn't sleep. I wrote lines of code until my fingers ached. I didn't know if it would work or if anyone would care. But for once, I didn't need anyone to believe in me. I just needed to believe in myself. The hum of my old desktop filled the apartment. It was past midnight, and Mason sat beside me on the couch, tapping his keyboard like a man possessed. Bro, your Wi-Fi is slower than grief, he muttered. I can't afford faster grief, I said, rubbing my eyes. He laughed. That's the spirit, broke and sarcastic. I leaned back. You really think anyone will use this app? He looked up. Nope, but they will once we make it better. Encouraging, I said dryly. He smirked. Hey, we're two guys with laptops and debt. What could possibly go wrong? I stared at the screen. Rows of code blurred into nonsense. Sometimes I think I'm wasting my time. Mason set his laptop aside. You're not wasting time. You're building something that'll shut everyone up. Everyone? I asked. He raised an eyebrow. You mean her, right? I didn't answer. Thought so, he said. You still check her Instagram? Sometimes, he sighed. Man, you've got to stop letting her live rent-free in your head. She left me for a guy with a penthouse, I said quietly. I live next to a guy who sells fake sneakers. Then make that your motivation, Mason said. When you succeed, she'll see it. She'll wish she'd stayed, I shook my head. I don't want her to regret it. I just want to stop feeling like a joke. Then prove you're not, he said. We worked until dawn. The sun bled through the blinds, painting the walls gold. Mason stretched. We need coffee. Strong enough to kill hope. Make it 2, I said. Days turned into weeks. Rejections piled up in my inbox like junk mail. Investors said we were too small, too inexperienced, too idealistic. I started to believe them. One evening after the 10th rejection, I slammed my laptop shut. That's it. I'm done. Mason looked up from his noodles. Done with what? With all of it, I said. This dream, this struggle. It's pointless, he slurped loudly. Cool, so what's your plan? Go back to begging Mr. Price for your old job? I glared at him. You don't have to be a jerk. I'm being honest, he said. You can quit if you want, but you'll hate yourself tomorrow. Maybe, I muttered. He leaned forward. Ethan, every great story starts with someone who refused to quit. You think success happens overnight? It takes nights like this. Miserable, caffeine-filled, soul-crushing nights. I looked at him, half angry, half grateful. Why are you even helping me? He shrugged. Because you helped me once. Remember when I failed that coding class? You stayed up all night teaching me loops. I smiled faintly. That was years ago. Exactly, he said. Now it's my turn. The next week, we finished the first version of our app, a simple productivity tool. It wasn't much, but it worked. I sent demo emails to 10 potential investors. None replied until one night. My phone buzzed with a new message. Grace Liu, potential collaboration. I blinked. Mason, come here, he rushed over. What? Did we finally get spammed by someone rich? It's from Grace Liu, I said. She runs Horizon Capital, he whistled. The Grace Liu? The one who turned a garage startup into $1 million firm? Yeah, my heart raced. She wants to schedule a call tomorrow. Mason grinned. Bro, wear something nice. Like something without ramen stains. The next morning I sat in front of my cracked laptop, waiting for the call. My hands shook slightly. When her face appeared on the screen, I froze. She looked calm, confident, maybe late 30s. Mr. Cole, she said with a polite smile. I reviewed your app. You did? I stammered. I did. It's rough, but promising. Rough is generous, I said. She chuckled. I like your honesty. Tell me why you built it. I hesitated, then said, because I was tired of people telling me I couldn't. She nodded slowly. Good answer. Reminds me of myself a decade ago. Mason, sitting beside me, whispered, she's still in the call, dude. Grace smiled faintly. I assume that's your partner? Yeah, I said quickly. That's Mason. Hello, Ms. Liu, he said, trying to sound professional and failing. She laughed softly. You two have something. Drive. Not polish, not experience, but drive. I want to see where it goes. My heart skipped. Are you saying you'll invest? I'm saying I'll meet you, she replied. Let's talk in person next week. When the call ended, Mason jumped up. We did it! Not yet, I said, but I couldn't stop smiling. But maybe this is it, the first spark. He clapped my shoulder. You hear that? That's the sound of fate turning. I looked around my apartment, the cracked paint, the broken chair, the empty cup on the table. For the first time, it didn't look sad. It looked temporary. That night, I sat by the window staring at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lena was living her perfect life. But for the first time, I didn't care, because for the first time, I saw a path that was mine, and it had just begun to glow. 2 years, Mason muttered, staring at the spreadsheet. 2 years, and we're still broke geniuses. Correction, I said, typing furiously. We're broke, tired geniuses, he smirked. Tired? You look half dead. That's called dedication, I said, sipping cold coffee that tasted like burnt hope. Grace's voice echoed in my head from months ago. Small investments test big dreams. She'd wired us just enough to stay alive, not enough to relax. Every dollar screamed at me to make it count. Servers down again, Mason groaned. Restart it, I said. He sighed. You say that like it's a life philosophy. It kind of is, I replied. Everything breaks. You just restart. We worked through the night. The city outside slept, but our little apartment glowed like a bunker of defiance. You think Grace regrets investing in us? I asked. Mason chuckled. Nah, she likes underdogs. Besides, you email her progress reports like a lovesick intern. They're updates, I said. They're essays, he corrected. If I die of exhaustion, bury me with your progress reports. I rolled my eyes. At least you'll be remembered for something. He laughed, then coughed. Jokes aside, Ethan. We're close. I can feel it. I wanted to believe him. But the bills piling on the table said otherwise. 2 years of rejection had carved patience into me like a scar. Our app, now called Focus Link, finally had users. Not many, but enough to whisper, maybe. One night, Grace visited the office, if you could call it that. A single desk, 2 laptops, and a dying potted plant. She looked around, amused. This is where you build the future? I grinned. Every empire starts in a garage? Ours starts with bad Wi-Fi, she smiled faintly. And yet you're still here. That's progress. Mason leaned against the wall. So when do we get the $1 million check? Grace chuckled. When your app hits 100,000 users. Only 98,000 to go, I said. She studied me quietly. You've changed, Ethan. Changed how? 2 years ago, you wanted revenge. Now you want results. Her words stuck with me long after she left. That night, Mason said, she's right, you know. You're not chasing her anymore, you're chasing yourself. Guess I grew up, I said. He grinned. Or maybe you got too tired to care. I laughed. That too, months passed. Our user count crept higher. Startups noticed us. Blogs wrote articles calling us the quiet disruptors. Grace arranged investor meetings. I pitched like my life depended on every breath. Sometimes they said no. Sometimes they said, maybe later, but every no hurt less. Every later felt closer. One afternoon, Mason burst in, waving his phone. We hit 50,000 users. I blinked. You serious? He nodded, grinning. We're officially halfway to our $1 million dream. I stared at the screen, a small smile forming. Halfway there? In only 2 years, see? Progress, he said. Slow, painful progress. Still progress, I said. That night, Grace called. Congratulations, Ethan. You're building something solid. Thanks to your faith, I said. Faith is just interest on consistency, she replied. Keep earning it. Her words fueled me. We pushed harder. We slept less. We fought bugs, investors, burnout, and somehow ourselves. One night, Mason collapsed onto the floor. If success doesn't come soon, I'll start coding in my dreams. You already do, I said. He groaned. Remind me why we're doing this again? Because it's the only thing that still makes sense, I said quietly. He looked up, smiling faintly. Good answer. Then came the morning that froze me. I was eating cereal, scrolling through headlines when I saw it. Reed Technologies acquires fast-growing startup. There she was, Lena, standing beside Daniel, smiling at cameras dressed in success. I almost scrolled past, until I saw the smaller text beneath the headline. Acquisition target, focus link. The spoon dropped from my hand. No, that can't be right. Mason looked up. What? I shoved the phone at him. He read it, eyes widening. You've got to be kidding me. They bought us? I whispered. He frowned. But Grace never said wait. He pulled up his email. Oh my God. They went through Horizon Capital's partner fund. Grace must have negotiated it. I stood up, my chest tightening. She sold us to them? Mason hesitated. Technically, it's a merger. But yeah, to them, I sank back down. My mind spun. The same company run by Daniel. The same woman who said I'd never make it. Mason sat beside me quietly. You okay? I don't know, I said honestly. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Ethan, this isn't the end. It's poetic, I said bitterly. She left me for him. Now he owns my company. Owns part of it, he corrected. We still have shares. We still have code. We still have fight, I looked at him. You think I can face them? He smirked. Face them? You're gonna outshine them. I didn't respond. I just stared at the article again. Her smile burned on the screen, but it didn't sting like before. Because beneath the shock, beneath the ache, something else stirred, something sharper, steadier. Determination. If they thought buying my creation meant buying me, they had no idea who I'd become. This wasn't defeat. This was the next battle. The elevator ride felt endless. My reflection in the mirror stared back, same face, different man. The boy who once begged for love was gone. The man walking into that boardroom was made of quiet storms. When the doors opened, I stepped into silence. A dozen eyes turned toward me. At the head of the table sat Daniel Reed, polished, confident, fake. Beside him, Lena. She froze the moment she saw me. Her lips parted slightly, the color draining from her face. Daniel's smirk widened. "You're early. This meeting's for shareholders only." "I know," I said, taking my seat at the opposite end of the table. "That's why I'm here," he chuckled. "Cute. You're what, consulting for Grace Liu now?" Grace, sitting calmly beside me, slid a folder toward the table's center. "Actually, Daniel, I'm not consulting anyone today," he frowned. "Then why?" "Because my controlling shares," Grace interrupted, "no longer belong to me." The room shifted. A few whispers rose. Lena's eyes darted between us. Daniel leaned forward. "You can't just hand over controlling shares without board approval." "You're right," Grace said smoothly. "That's why I didn't hand them over. I sold them to him. Every head turned." I met Daniel's glare and said evenly, "Business is unpredictable. You taught me that." Lena's hand trembled. "Ethan, how hard work," I said simply. "And a little faith. Something you never had in me," she swallowed hard. "You think this is revenge?" I smiled faintly. "No, this is balance." Daniel slammed a pen on the table. "You think buying a few shares makes you powerful? I built this company." "You built it," I said, "on other people's dreams." "Including mine," Grace folded her arms. "Gentlemen, we're here to finalize integration terms. Ethan now holds 51% ownership. He's the new CEO. The silence after that felt electric. Daniel's face twisted. "This is a joke." "Afraid not," Grace said. "Legal papers were filed this morning." He turned to me, fury flashing. "You think you can run a company this size?" "I don't think," I said. "I know," Lena finally spoke, voice shaking. "Ethan, please. This isn't necessary. We can talk about this privately." "Privately?" I repeated. "Like when you told me I wasn't enough? When you said love doesn't pay bills?" Her eyes glistened. "I didn't mean you did," I cut in. "And you were right. Love doesn't pay bills. But pain builds empires." Mason, sitting quietly at the back, tried not to smile. Daniel scoffed. "You're bluffing. You don't have the guts to lead this." I leaned forward. "Try me." He stood, pacing. "You won't last a month. I'll walk and half this board will follow." "Walk then," I said calmly. "I'm not chaining anyone to my vision," Grace spoke softly. "The contracts you signed with Horizon still bind your shares for 18 months, Daniel. Walk all you want, you'll still work for him." Daniel's jaw tightened. He glared at Grace. "You planned this." She met his stare without flinching. "No, Ethan earned this." Lena looked at me, her voice small. "Ethan, please. I was wrong, I know that now. But this isn't you." I exhaled slowly. "You're right. The old me would have begged you to stay. The old me would have apologized for being broken. But I'm not that man anymore," she whispered. "Then who are you?" I met her eyes. "I'm the man you left behind, and the man you'll never outrun." The boardroom stayed silent. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock. Daniel sat down again, face pale with anger. "Fine," he muttered. "You want the company? Take it. But don't think I'll make it easy," I nodded. "I wouldn't respect you if you did," Grace stood. Meeting adjourned. Everyone began to leave, murmuring under their breath. Lena hesitated, then whispered, "You really changed." I turned to her. "No, I just stopped pretending." As she walked out, Mason grinned. That was legendary. I sank into the chair, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. "It's not victory yet," I said quietly. "It's just the start of another war." Grace smiled faintly. "Then fight it like you fought everything else, silently but without mercy." I looked at the empty seat where Lena had been. My chest ached, but this time it wasn't pain, it was closure. I finally wasn't the one left behind. Rumors started small, missed deadlines, layoffs, investors pulling out. By the time headlines hit, Daniel's empire was already bleeding. Grace slid a report across my desk. Reed Technologies' debt just tripled. I scanned the page. "So the Golden Boy finally rusted," she smiled faintly. "You almost sound pleased." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just unsurprised." Mason leaned in from the doorway. "Their stock dropped 12% this week. People are panicking." "People should," I said. They built their house on borrowed confidence, he whistled. Think Lena's regretting her life choices yet? I didn't answer. But I'd seen the photos, Lena's perfect smile fading with every event. The glow she once had was gone, replaced by something hollow. Grace watched me quietly. You still look at her pictures? Sometimes, I admitted. Not because I miss her, because I want to remember what betrayal looks like. Grace nodded slowly. You've learned to weaponize pain. I leaned back. It's the only thing that doesn't lie. Weeks passed. Our company soared while theirs sank. Deals I once begged for were now offered on silver trays. Investors called me visionary. I didn't feel like one, just relentless. Then one night, long after the office emptied, the elevator dinged. I didn't look up. Working late again? Her voice froze me. I turned slowly. Lena stood in the doorway, wearing the same perfume I used to love. Lena, I said flatly. You shouldn't be here. She stepped closer. I wanted to see you. Why? I asked. To compare success stories? She winced. Please don't be like that. Like what? I said. Honest? She sighed, eyes glistening. You've changed, I smirked. That's what success does, right? Turns losers into lessons, her voice softened. You weren't a loser, Ethan. I was just scared. I laughed quietly. Scared of what, poverty? Waiting too long for me to matter? She flinched. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a choice. Mistakes are accidents. Her eyes filled with tears. I miss the old you. I stared at her for a long moment. The old me died the day you walked away. Don't say that, she whispered. It's true, I said. You killed the man who believed love could fix everything. I buried him under every sleepless night I worked to prove you wrong. She took another step. Ethan, I never stopped thinking about you. I almost laughed. You didn't think about me when you left. Or when you smiled beside him on magazine covers. That wasn't happiness, she said, her voice trembling. You think I don't see what's happening? Daniel's company is falling apart. He's been hiding debts for months. Everything's collapsing. And you came here why? I asked. Looking for shelter. Her tears finally fell. I came here because I thought maybe there was still something left between us. There is, I said coldly. A memory and a grave. She covered her face, crying quietly. For a second, the old ache flickered, but it didn't burn anymore. I stood, walking past her toward the window. You know what's funny? I said. You once told me love doesn't pay bills. You were right. But it does pay dividends in pain, in patience, in power. She turned toward me. You sound like someone I don't know. That's because you never cared to learn who I could become. She took a shaky breath. Ethan, please. I'm sorry. Keep your sorry, I said. It won't fix the past. And it won't buy your way back, her voice broke. Do you hate me that much? I shook my head. No, hate means I still care. You're just irrelevant now. Silence filled the room. Only the city lights flickered across her face. After a long pause, she whispered, You're colder than I remembered. No, I said quietly. I'm just finished remembering. She turned away, shoulders shaking. Daniel won't survive this crash. He's losing everything. Then he'll learn what I did, I said. That pain is the best teacher. She hesitated at the door. Do you ever think about what we could have been? Sometimes, I said. Then I remember what we were. She looked at me one last time. Goodbye, Ethan. I met her gaze, emotionless. Goodbye, Lena. When the elevator doors closed behind her, I exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, her tears didn't pull me back. They pushed me further forward. Grace stormed into my office before sunrise, holding her phone like a loaded weapon. He did it, she said. Daniel just tried to leak our client list to competitors. I looked up from my laptop. You're sure? She nodded. We traced the email. It came straight from his executive account. Mason whistled from the couch. He's actually stupid enough to play dirty against you? I leaned back, calm on the outside, boiling inside. He's desperate. When a man's empire starts to fall, he claws at anything left standing. Grace paced. He underestimated me. I let the bait hang just long enough. The fake data he sent out, it was tagged. You set him up? Mason grinned. Grace smiled thinly. He set himself up. I just made sure there were witnesses. I exhaled slowly. Then it's over. She handed me a tablet. Not yet. Wait for the morning news. When the headlines hit, the world exploded. Daniel Reed under investigation for corporate fraud. Reed Technologies faces bankruptcy amid scandal. Grace dropped the newspaper on my desk. That was fast. I stared at the photo of Daniel in handcuffs, his once proud face pale and furious. Karma works faster than justice sometimes. Mason leaned over my shoulder. So that's it? The guy who stole your girl, your work, and your dignity, done in by his own greed? I gave a faint smile. No one destroys Daniel Reed better than Daniel Reed, he laughed. Beautiful. Absolutely poetic. I turned toward the window. Outside, reporters swarmed around Reed Tower. Flashbulbs, chaos, and shouting filled the street below. Look at him, I murmured. The man who thought he owned the world. Grace stood beside me. Now the world owns him. A news clip played on her phone. Daniel trying to push through reporters, shouting something about false accusations. Lena was right behind him, angry, terrified, broken. Do you feel sorry for her? Grace asked softly. I shook my head. No, she chose his world over mine. Now she gets to live in its ruins. Grace studied me. You really don't hate them anymore, do you? I don't need to, I said. They're already living their punishment. She smiled faintly. That's colder than any revenge I could plan. It's not cold, I said quietly. It's peace. Hours later, Daniel called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Ethan! His voice cracked, raw and shaking. You think you won? I stayed silent. You think this makes you better than me? He spat. You're nothing without Grace's money. You'd still be coding in a basement if not for her. Maybe, I said, but I built something real. You built lies. Everything I did, he snapped, was for success. For survival! I laughed softly. You mean for ego? He fell silent. I continued. You had everything, Daniel. Power, money, her. And you lost it all because you couldn't stand seeing me rise. Don't act like some saint, he said bitterly. You wanted this. You wanted me to burn. I looked out the window again, at the swarm of cameras still surrounding his building. No, Daniel. I just wanted to stop bleeding. The fire came from you. There was a long pause. Then his voice dropped low and tired. They're arresting me again tomorrow. Lena's leaving. The board's gone. I don't even have a lawyer who'll pick up my calls. Sounds lonely, I said. He let out a bitter laugh. You must be happy. I'm not, I said honestly. I just stopped being sad. He didn't respond. The line went silent. Grace walked back in just as I set my phone down. That him? Yeah, I said. He's finished. Mason leaned on the doorframe. And Lena? I shrugged. She'll survive. She always does. But she'll never find peace, not the kind she threw away. Grace crossed her arms. You really believe in karma, huh? I smiled faintly. No, I believe in consequences. We stood by the window again. Below us, chaos kept spinning, cameras, headlines, screaming voices. Funny, Mason said quietly. You don't look satisfied. I'm not supposed to, I replied. Revenge doesn't fill the empty parts. It just stops the bleeding long enough to heal. Grace gave me a knowing look. So what now? I exhaled, watching the sunset reflect off the skyscrapers. Now, I build. Not out of anger this time. Out of purpose. Down below, Daniel's world burned quietly. No warning, no mercy. Just karma arriving right on schedule. It was raining again when she came back. The same kind of soft, endless rain that used to mean something. Mason had just left the office when the knock came. I almost didn't answer. Then I heard her voice. Ethan, it's me. I froze. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't heard. But curiosity, that old enemy, made me open the door. Lena stood there. No cameras, no makeup, no armor. Just pain. Her eyes searched mine. You look different. I am, I said. You should have expected that. She tried to smile, but it collapsed halfway. I didn't know where else to go. I stepped aside silently. She walked in, dripping water on the floor, her perfume replaced by the scent of rain and exhaustion. This place, she said softly, looking around. You've done well. I built it from the pieces you left behind. She winced. I deserve that. I leaned against my desk. So why are you here, Lena? She hesitated. Because I finally saw what I lost. I let the words hang there, watching her. She didn't look like the woman who left me for Daniel. She looked like someone who'd seen the inside of her own regret. I thought success would make everything easier, she said, but it just made me emptier. I kept chasing things that didn't matter. And Daniel? I asked, her voice trembled. Gone, he's bankrupt. Facing trial. I tried to help, but he turned on me. Said I ruined him? Did you? She looked up sharply. No, I just followed him. I thought he knew where he was going. I sighed. You did that with me too. I know. She took a shaky breath. I left because I was afraid. You were struggling, and I couldn't handle watching you fail. I nodded slowly. You didn't just leave, Lena. You made me believe I wasn't worth staying for. She stepped closer. You were always worth it. I just couldn't see it then. I looked at her, really looked. The perfect edges of her once polished face were gone, replaced by rawness, by truth. She whispered, I finally understand what love means. It's not about winning or escaping. It's about choosing someone even when it's hard. My chest tightened. For a second, I almost forgot every sleepless night, every unanswered message, every time I told myself I'd stop missing her. Do you think that lesson came free? I asked. Tears welled up. No, it cost me everything. I nodded. Good. Maybe now it'll stay with you. She reached out, her hand trembling. Ethan, I'm not asking you to take me back. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. Her voice cracked on the last word, fragile and real. I took a deep breath. You know, for a long time I wanted to hear that. I used to rehearse what I'd say if you ever came back. What would you say? She whispered. I smiled faintly. Exactly this. I'm glad you learned what love is, Lena, but I've already graduated. She froze. Graduated? Yeah, I said quietly. From you. From the pain. From needing closure. Her lips trembled. So, that's it? That's it. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the silence, soft and steady, like an old song we both remembered but couldn't sing anymore. Finally, she said, You've changed. I had to, I said. If I hadn't, I'd still be waiting for you to come home. She looked down. I don't even know who I am anymore. You'll figure it out, I said gently. Start by forgiving yourself. A tear rolled down her cheek. And you? Have you forgiven me? I thought about it for a moment. Yes, because I needed to move on more than I needed revenge. She nodded slowly, as if accepting a sentence she knew was fair. Then she whispered, Goodbye, Ethan. I opened the door for her. The rain was still falling, endless and silver. She stepped into it without looking back. For the first time, I didn't want her to. When the door closed, I exhaled. The office felt heavier, but my heart didn't. I walked to the window and watched the city blur through the rain. That chapter of my life had finally ended, not with revenge, not with triumph, but with understanding, and that, I realized, was the real victory. The lights were blinding when I stepped onto the stage. Cameras flashed, and for a second I almost laughed. A few years ago, I couldn't even afford rent. Now they were calling me the man who rose from nothing. The host's voice echoed through the hall. Please welcome Ethan Cole, founder and CEO of NextCore Technologies. Applause thundered. I took the mic, glanced at the crowd, and froze, not from fear, but from recognition. In the front row sat Clara, Mason, Grace, and Olivia, my new COO. They were the faces that never left when everyone else did. I smiled. Good evening, everyone. The audience quieted. I could almost feel their curiosity pressing against me. When I started, I said, I didn't have money, connections, or reputation. What I did have was failure. And heartbreak, someone chuckled softly. I continued. But failure taught me something success never could. It taught me to listen. To work when no one's watching. To keep standing even when people walk away. I paused. My eyes found Clara's. She gave me a small nod. Mason whispered from the front row. Still dramatic as ever. I smirked. Yeah, I get that a lot. The crowd laughed lightly. People often ask what changed, I said. The answer's simple. I stopped chasing approval and started chasing progress. Grace raised an eyebrow. Tell them about the nights you almost gave up. I grinned. She loves reminding me I almost quit. Grace called out, Because you didn't. That got a few smiles, I said. I remember the day our first app failed. I was broke, angry, and ready to sell my laptop. Mason told me, If you quit now, you'll regret it more than losing her. Mason laughed. Still true. Yeah, I said, looking straight at him. It was. I turned back to the audience. We built something small and the world ignored us. But we didn't need the world's permission to keep going. We only needed belief and one investor crazy enough to take a chance. Grace shook her head, smiling. Crazy is generous. Fair enough, I said. But that chance changed everything. Someone from the audience asked, "Do you ever regret the people who left you behind?" I took a breath. The question hit harder than I expected. No, I said slowly, because their absence made space for better people. Clara clapped softly, and a few others joined. I continued. You see, revenge isn't destroying others. It's building yourself so high that they can never reach you again. The room went still. Every face turned serious, listening. I used to think revenge meant proving them wrong. Now I know it means proving myself right. Olivia smiled proudly from her seat. And you did. I had help, I said. Real help. The kind that doesn't ask what's in it for them. I glanced at my team. Clara, who kept me alive when I wanted to disappear. Mason, who refused to let me quit. Grace, who risked her reputation for a stranger. Olivia, who made sure I didn't burn out chasing ghosts. They all smiled. My throat tightened. I'm not here to say success fixes everything, I said. It doesn't. You just learn to carry the pain differently. Someone in the back called, "What drives you now?" I smiled faintly. Peace, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Then I added, I used to dream of making her regret leaving. Now I just hope she finds the strength to rebuild herself like I did. Grace leaned forward and whispered, That's growth. Maybe, I said softly. Or maybe it's just time. The host stepped up beside me. One last question before we wrap up. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you say? I looked at the audience, at the cameras, at the bright lights that once terrified me. Then I said, I'd tell him to stop begging people to stay. To build something worth staying for. The crowd erupted into applause. I heard Mason's whistle over the noise. When I stepped off stage, Clara hugged me. Mom would be proud, she whispered. I hope so, I said. Grace shook my hand. You've come full circle. Not full, I said. Just far enough. We laughed, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was running from the past. I'd become someone I could finally respect, someone who didn't need revenge, love or validation, just purpose. And that, I realized, was the man I had become. The bell over the door jingled as I walked into the diner. Same creaky sound, same smell of burnt coffee and old memories. The waitress looked up, surprised. Haven't seen you here in years. Yeah, I said, sliding into my old booth by the window. Guess I just missed the silence. She smiled faintly. Still coffee, no sugar? Still coffee, I said. But make it black this time. When she left, I looked around. The place hadn't changed. Same cracked counter. Same buzzing neon sign outside. Same spot where everything had ended. Only this time, I wasn't waiting for anyone. I stirred the coffee, watching the surface tremble under the light. The memory of that night came back uninvited. Lena's cold eyes, Daniel's smug grin, my quiet begging. Never again, I whispered. A voice startled me. Talking to yourself now? I turned. Mason stood there grinning. Didn't think I'd find you here, I chuckled. Guess some ghosts need a proper goodbye. He slid into the seat across from me. You okay? Better than I've ever been. He raised an eyebrow. You don't sound convinced. I am, I said. For once I mean it, he nodded slowly. So this is the place? Yeah, this is where it all fell apart. I looked out the window. I remember watching her walk away. I thought my life ended right there. And now I realize it just started, he smirked. You always did like poetic endings. Maybe, I said. But I earned this one. The waitress brought my coffee. Mason ordered pie because of course he did. He took a bite and said, You ever think about her? Sometimes, I admitted. But not the way I used to. How's that? I leaned back. I used to think of her as the one who broke me. Now I think of her as the one who taught me what I never want again. He nodded. That's growth. It's peace, I said quietly. And it feels strange, he smiled. You deserve strange peace. We sat there in comfortable silence for a moment. The old jukebox in the corner sputtered to life, playing a soft tune I hadn't heard in years. Remember this song? I asked. Of course, he said. You played it on repeat the week she left. Yeah, I said. It used to hurt. Now it just sounds nostalgic. He studied me for a moment. You really are over her, huh? I think I am, I said. Because I don't want her back. I don't even want revenge anymore. I just want to live, he grinned. That's how you know you've won. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. Not just in business, but in life. He raised his mug. To moving on. I clinked mine against his. To becoming someone we can respect. He laughed. You sound like a motivational speaker. Maybe I'll write a book, I joked. Call it From Broke to Boss, he said. We both laughed. The kind of laugh that comes easy when the pain finally fades. Then Mason's phone buzzed. Grace wants to know if you're coming to dinner. Tell her I'll be late, I said. Just need a few more minutes. He nodded, slid out of the booth, and patted my shoulder. Don't stay too long. The past isn't worth another refill. When he left, I looked around one last time. The diner was half empty, the world quiet again. I whispered, funny how silence used to scare me. The waitress came by with the bill. You sure you don't want dessert? I smiled. No thanks. I already got what I came for. She tilted her head. And what was that? Closure, I said. She nodded like she understood. Even if she didn't, I stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and took one last look at the booth, the same one where I once begged to be loved. Now, I just wanted to be free. As I walked out, the cool night air hit my face. The neon sign flickered behind me, painting the street in red and gold. I took a deep breath and smiled. Sometimes, losing someone is how you find yourself, and tonight, sitting in that same diner, I finally found mine.